My name is Rebecca, and I'm 27 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened last October, and I swear on everything I love that it's true. I've tried to forget it, but the memories won't let me go. I've always loved hiking. There's something peaceful about being surrounded by nature, away from phones and people and all the noise of everyday life. Last fall, I decided to spend a long weekend exploring the Catskill Mountains in New York. I'd been planning the trip for months. I had maps, GPS, plenty of supplies. I'm not reckless. I've been hiking since I was a kid. My dad taught me everything about trail safety, reading terrain, what to do if you get lost. He passed away 2 years ago, and in a way, these trips helped me feel close to him. It was a Friday afternoon when I arrived at the trailhead, peak foliage season. The mountains were absolutely gorgeous, every shade of red, orange, and gold you could imagine. The air had that perfect autumn chill. According to my map, the trail I planned to hike was a moderate loop, about 8 miles. Should take about 4 hours. Plenty of time to complete it before dark. The first mile was perfect. The kind of hike that reminds you why you love nature. But then I noticed something odd. The trail markers started looking different. Trail markers are usually consistent, painted blazes on trees in specific colors. This trail was supposed to be marked with blue, but I started seeing red markers mixed in, then white, then colors that didn't match any official trail system I knew. I checked my GPS. According to the satellite, I was still on the right trail, so I kept going. That was my first mistake. By the 3rd mile, something felt wrong. The forest had got quieter. I know that sounds cliche, but I mean it literally. No birds, no insects, no rustling in the underbrush. Just this heavy, oppressive silence. The trees started looking strange too. The leaves were wrong, still attached to the branches, but completely gray, like someone had drained all the color from them. And the bark on the trees had these weird patterns carved into them, not by animals. These were deliberate, symbols I didn't recognize. I checked my GPS again. This time, it showed me in a completely different location than where I should have been. According to the device, I was 3 miles off trail, in an area marked as no data available. That's when I decided to turn back. But when I turned around, the trail behind me was gone. I'm not talking about losing the path or getting confused. I mean the trail I had just walked on. It literally wasn't there anymore. Instead, there were just trees and underbrush, no sign that anyone had ever walked through there. I tried to stay calm, used my compass, started walking north, which should have led me back to the main trail. But every direction I walked just led me deeper into the gray forest. Hours passed. The sun should have been setting, but the light stayed the same. That weird, diffused twilight that made it impossible to tell what time it was. My phone was useless. No signal. The GPS kept showing me in impossible locations, sometimes placing me miles away from where I'd been just seconds before. Then I heard the whistle. It sounded human at first. Someone whistling a tune, like a hiker calling out to find their group. I shouted back, "Hello, I'm lost. Can you help me?" The whistling stopped. Then it started again, closer this time, but it sounded wrong. The tune was distorted, hitting notes that shouldn't be possible for a human to make, high-pitched and low-pitched at the same time. I ran. I didn't care about staying oriented anymore. I just ran. Branches tore at my face and arms. I could hear the whistling following me, moving through the trees faster than any person could move. That's when I saw the cabin. It appeared suddenly, like it had just materialized out of the fog. A small wooden cabin, old-fashioned but well-maintained. Smoke was coming from the chimney. A light glowed in the window. I didn't hesitate. I ran to the door and pounded on it. "Please, I need help." The door swung open on its own. No one was there. Inside, the cabin was warm. A fire crackled in the fireplace. There was a table set with food, fresh bread, soup, even a cup of hot tea still steaming. Like someone had just prepared a meal and stepped out. I was exhausted, terrified, starving. I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me. I tried the door. Locked. The windows wouldn't open. I was trapped. That's when I noticed the photographs on the walls. Dozens of them. Old black and white photos, some in color. All of them showing hikers. Different people, different eras based on their clothing. But they all had one thing in common. They were all standing in this exact cabin, in this exact room, staring at the camera with expressions of absolute terror. And in the corner of each photo, just barely visible, was a figure. Tall, elongated, with two long arms and a face that was just wrong. Blurred, like reality couldn't quite hold its shape around it. I heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, deliberate, moving toward the chimney. I grabbed a chair and smashed through the window. Glass tore my arms, but I didn't care. I climbed through and ran. Behind me, I heard that whistling again, now furious, multiple voices whistling at once in that impossible harmony. I ran for what felt like hours. And then, suddenly, I was standing at a trailhead. Not the one I'd started at. A different one, about 30 miles away. There were people there, other hikers, staring at me like I was insane. I was covered in blood and scratches. My clothes were torn, and according to them, I'd been missing for 5 days. 5 days. I'd only experienced maybe 6 or 7 hours. The authorities searched for the cabin, for the trail with the gray trees. They found nothing. According to every map, official record, and satellite image, that trail doesn't exist. Never has. But here's what keeps me up at night. Last week, I received a package at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a photograph. It was me, standing in that cabin, staring at the camera with that same expression of terror I'd seen in all those other photos. And in the corner, barely visible, was that figure. Those two long arms. That blurred, impossible face. But here's the thing that makes my blood run cold. I'm not alone in the photo. There's someone behind me. Another person. A hiker I don't remember seeing. They're looking directly at the camera too. And written on the back of the photo, in handwriting I don't recognize. You weren't the only one who found the trail this year. She was looking for you. I don't know who she is. I've never been able to find out who sent the package. But sometimes, late at night, I hear whistling outside my window. And I know, that one day, I'm going to hear a knock on my door. And when I open it, the trail will be waiting for me. My name is Lawson, and I'm 35 years old. I have 2 kids of my own now, and I will never take them to a pumpkin patch. What happened to me when I was 11 years old is the reason why. It was October 1999. I lived in a small town in rural Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the biggest excitement each year was the Harvest Festival. My best friend Tommy and I were inseparable that year. We spent every afternoon after school riding our bikes, exploring the woods, typical small-town kid stuff. There was this pumpkin patch on the edge of town, run by Old Man Garrett. He'd owned that land for as long as anyone could remember. Most people avoided him. He was weird, kept to himself, barely spoke to anyone. But he grew the biggest, most perfect pumpkins in 3 counties. That October, Tommy and I decided we wanted to buy pumpkins from his patch to carve for Halloween. We'd saved up our allowance money, and we thought it'd be an adventure. Our parents had always warned us to stay away from Garrett's property. But we were 11. We thought we knew better. We rode our bikes out there on a Saturday afternoon. It was one of those perfect fall days, sunny but cool, leaves crunching under our tires. The pumpkin patch was about 2 miles outside town, down a dirt road that cut through cornfields. When we got there, the place looked abandoned. There was no sign, no customers, just rows and rows of pumpkins and these scarecrows scattered throughout the field. Dozens of them, different sizes, different poses, some standing, some sitting, some on their knees. "This is creepy," Tommy said. He wanted to leave, but I saw the pumpkins. They were perfect. Huge, bright orange, symmetrical. Way better than the ones at the grocery store. "Come on," I told him. "We'll just grab a couple and leave money at the house. We don't even have to talk to him." We walked into the patch, between the rows of pumpkins. That's when I noticed something weird about the scarecrows. They were too detailed. Most scarecrows are just rough approximations of people, stick frames with old clothes stuffed with straw. But these looked real. They had faces, not painted burlap sacks, but actual faces made from what looked like porcelain or clay. Each one was unique, different expressions, some smiling, some frowning, some with their mouths open like they were screaming, and they were all dressed in children's clothes. "Lawson, look at this," Tommy called out. He was standing next to one of the scarecrows, a small one, maybe the size of an 8-year-old, wearing a faded blue dress. I walked over. Up close, it was even more disturbing. The face was incredibly detailed, glass eyes that actually looked like they were seeing something, individual eyelashes, even a little mole on the cheek. "That's not a scarecrow," Tommy whispered. "That's a doll, like a life-size doll." That's when we heard it, a child's voice, singing. We both froze. The singing was coming from deeper in the patch. A little girl's voice, singing a nursery rhyme. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." We followed the sound. I don't know why. We should have run, but something drew us toward it. That's when we found her. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing among the pumpkins. She was wearing an old-fashioned white dress, the kind you'd see in historical photos. Her hair was in pigtails. She was facing away from us, still singing. "Hey," I called out. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" She stopped singing. Slowly, she turned around. Her face was porcelain, glass eyes staring at us, a painted smile. She wasn't a little girl. She was one of the scarecrows, and she was moving. We ran. God, we ran faster than we'd ever run in our lives. But as we turned to head back to our bikes, more of them started moving. All around us, the scarecrows were turning their heads, tracking our movement. Some of them started standing up. Others started walking. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, like marionettes controlled by an amateur puppeteer. But they were fast. Tommy tripped over a pumpkin. I grabbed him, pulled him up. We could hear them behind us, the sound of their wooden joints creaking, their feet shuffling through the dirt. Then we heard Old Man Garrett's voice. He was standing at the edge of the patch, blocking our path to the bikes. "I told everyone in town not to send their children here," he said. His voice was sad, resigned. "I tried to warn them, but they never listen." "What are those things?" I screamed at him. He looked at us with eyes that were ancient, exhausted. "My children. My wife and we couldn't have kids. It destroyed her. She was into all kinds of folk magic, old country stuff passed down from her grandmother. She said she could make us a family. I told her not to mess with things we didn't understand, but she was desperate." The scarecrows were getting closer. I could see them clearly now, dozens of them, all different sizes, all wearing children's clothes from different eras. Some of the outfits looked decades old. "She made the first one," Garrett continued. "Used a ritual from an old book. It worked. Too well. The doll came alive. But it wasn't right. It wasn't human. And it was hungry. So hungry. It needed something to sustain it. Other children. Their essence. Their life. She kept making more. Trying to create a perfect child. But each one was worse than the last. And each one needed to feed. She's been gone for 20 years now. Couldn't live with what she'd created. But they're still here. Still hungry. And I can't stop them." One of the scarecrows lunged at Tommy. Its porcelain hand grabbed his arm. Where it touched him, his skin turned gray, like the color was being drained right out of him. I grabbed a fallen fence post and swung it at the thing's head. The porcelain shattered, and the scarecrow collapsed into a pile of straw and old clothes. But more were coming. "Run," Garrett suddenly shouted. "Run now. I'll hold them back." He pulled something from his pocket. It looked like salt or ash, and threw it in a circle around the approaching scarecrows. They recoiled from it, hissing like animals. Tommy and I didn't wait. We grabbed our bikes and pedaled like our lives depended on it. Because they did. We told our parents everything. They called the police. When the authorities went to Garrett's property, they found him dead in the pumpkin patch. Heart attack, they said. The patch was empty except for normal scarecrows. But they found something else. In his house, they found photos. Dozens of missing children from over the past 40 years. Kids who had disappeared from towns all over the state. All of them were last seen near pumpkin patches or cornfields during October. The case went cold. Without bodies, there was no proof of anything. But here's what I never told anyone, not even Tommy. Last October, 24 years after it happened, I received a package in the mail. Inside was a photograph. It showed Tommy and me as kids, standing in that pumpkin patch, surrounded by those scarecrows. But here's the thing. I don't remember anyone taking that picture. And in the background, standing just behind us, was a little girl in a white dress with porcelain skin and glass eyes. She was holding a sign. It said, "We're still waiting for you, Lawson. We remember. Come back and visit." I moved across the country, changed my phone number, but every October I get a new photo. Each one shows me somewhere I've recently been, the grocery store, my office, dropping my kids off at school. And in every photo, somewhere in the background, there's a child-sized scarecrow watching me. They're patient. They're waiting. And I know that someday I'll look up and they'll be standing right in front of me. My name is Florence, and I'm 29 years old. 2 years ago, I experienced something that's made me afraid of Halloween. Not the fun kind of afraid. The kind where you check your locks 3 times before bed and sleep with the lights on. October 2023. My boyfriend Jake and I had been dating for about 6 months, and things were going great. We were in that honeymoon phase where everything feels magical. He'd surprised me with tickets to this Halloween event about an hour outside of Portland, a huge corn maze on a farm, supposedly one of the best in Oregon. It was perfect date night weather. Cool but not cold, clear sky full of stars. The farm was exactly what you'd picture. Rustic barn, hay bales, the smell of apple cider and kettle corn. There were probably 200 people there. Families with kids, teenagers, couples like us. The main attraction was the corn maze. According to the promotional material, it covered over 10 acres and took the average person about 45 minutes to complete. They'd cut it into the shape of a giant jack-o'-lantern, which you could only see from the air in the promotional photos. We got our tickets and went to the entrance. There was a worker there, a teenage kid, probably 16 or 17, looking bored in a cheap ghost costume. "Rules are simple," he said, reciting from memory. "Stay on the paths. Don't damage the corn. If you need help finding your way out, just follow the sound of music. We play it from the exit. Have fun." The first 15 minutes were fun. The maze was well designed, with lots of dead ends and doublebacks. We could hear other people laughing, kids screaming with delight, parents calling out directions. Jack-o'-lanterns and strobe lights were scattered throughout, giving it the Halloween atmosphere. But then Jake decided to be clever. He pulled out his phone and turned on the GPS. "Check it out," he said, showing me the screen. "I can see the whole maze layout from the satellite view. We can solve it in like 5 minutes." "That's cheating," I laughed. "That's efficiency." He started navigating using the GPS, making turns based on the aerial view. And at first, it worked. We were making progress, getting closer to the exit. But then something weird happened. Jake stopped walking and stared at his phone. "That's not right." "What?" "According to the GPS, we just walked in a straight line for 2 minutes, but we made like 4 turns." I looked at the screen. He was right. The little blue dot showing our location had moved in a perfectly straight line, even though we definitely turned multiple times. "Phone's probably glitching," I said. "These corn mazes mess with GPS sometimes. Too much interference." We kept walking, but Jake couldn't let it go. He kept checking his phone, getting more and more frustrated. "This doesn't make sense. We should have reached the exit 5 minutes ago. But according to this, we've been walking in circles." That's when we realized we couldn't hear anyone else anymore. No laughter, no kids screaming, no music from the exit, just silence. Maybe everyone left. I suggested, but even as I said it, I knew it didn't make sense. We'd only been in the maze for maybe 25 minutes. It wasn't even 9 p.m. yet. We tried to retrace our steps, find our way back to the entrance. But every path looked the same. The corn stalks seemed taller than before, closing in overhead until we could barely see the sky. That's when Jake noticed something that made my blood run cold. "Florence, look at this." He was pointing at one of the jack-o'-lanterns scattered along the path. It was freshly carved, the cut still losing pumpkin pulp, but the face carved into it was weird, asymmetrical, almost looked like it was grimacing in pain. We walked to the next jack-o'-lantern. This one's face was different, more exaggerated, the mouth carved into a wider scream. The next one was even worse. The face looked genuinely agonized. "Someone's putting a lot of effort into the theming," Jake said, but his voice was shaky. We turned a corner and found ourselves in a section we'd already been through. I knew we'd been there because I'd dropped my scarf. It was still lying on the ground, but the path was different. The turns had changed. "That's impossible," Jake said. "Corn doesn't move. Mazes don't rearrange themselves." But as we stood there, I swear I heard it. A rustling sound, like thousands of corn stalks moving at once, reorganizing. The sound seemed to come from all around us. Then we heard footsteps. Someone else was in the maze. "Hello," I called out. "We're lost. Can you help us find the exit?" The footsteps stopped. Then they started again, faster, running toward us. We ran in the opposite direction. The footsteps followed. Multiple sets now, coming from different directions, all converging on our location. We burst into a small clearing in the maze and stopped. Standing in a circle around us were 5 figures. They were wearing scarecrow costumes, but way too realistic. Tattered clothes, burlap faces, but underneath I could see real skin, real eyes staring at us through the eye holes. "The maze is hungry," one of them said. It was a woman's voice, flat and emotionless. "It requires payment." "What the hell are you talking about?" Jake shouted. "This is someone's property. You can't." "Every year," another one interrupted, this time a man's voice. "Every year, the maze requires 2. Those who cheat, those who don't respect the tradition." Jake had used his phone to cheat the maze. They started moving toward us. We ran, crashing through the corn stalks themselves, not caring about the paths anymore. Behind us, I could hear them following, their footsteps never hurrying, but somehow always keeping pace. The corn was cutting us, long thin scratches appearing on our arms and faces, and I realized the stalks weren't just corn anymore. They felt wrong. The leaves were sharp like blades. The stalks themselves seemed to be moving, reaching toward us. We burst into another clearing, and there it was, a structure made entirely of corn stalks, woven together into something that looked almost like an altar. And on the altar was a scarecrow. But this one was different from the others. It was made from bones, human bones, held together with wire and rope, dressed in rotting clothes. The skull head was decorated with dried corn husks formed into a sort of crown. "Every year, 2 go missing," the woman's voice said from behind us. The figures had emerged from the corn, surrounding us again. The newspapers call it unfortunate accidents, people getting lost in the woods. But the maze knows. The maze always knows. Jay grabbed my hand. On 3, we run through them. Ready? But before he could count, the ground beneath us gave way. We fell maybe 10 feet into a pit beneath the maze. The walls were lined with corn stalks, but mixed in with them were things that made me want to scream. Clothes, shoes, watches, personal belongings, and bones. So many bones. Above us, the figures looked down. "The maze has already chosen," one said, "but it will only take one tonight. The other may leave." Jake looked at me. I saw the calculation in his eyes, the desperate math of survival. I'll never forget what happened next. He grabbed the walls and started climbing out. "I'm sorry, Florence. I'm so sorry." And he left me there. I heard screaming above me. Jake screaming. Then silence. The figures appeared at the edge of the pit again. One of them dropped a rope. "You may leave," the woman said. "You did not cheat. You respected the maze. The maze respects you in turn." I climbed out. Jake was gone. The figures were gone. I was standing at the exit of the maze. People were everywhere, families leaving, kids eating cotton candy. Completely normal. I told the police everything. They searched the maze top to bottom. Found nothing. No pit. No altar. No bones. Jake was listed as missing. They found his phone at the maze's exit. It had one photo on it. Him standing at the entrance, smiling, excited for our date night. But here's what keeps me awake at night. Last October, exactly 1 year after it happened, I drove past that farm. I don't know why. Maybe I needed closure. The maze was open again. Families were going in, having fun. My name is Juliet, and I'm 32 years old now. But what happened to me during the fall of 2019 still keeps me up at night. I've never told anyone the full story, until now. It was late October, about 3 weeks before Halloween. I had just moved to a small rural town in Vermont for a fresh start after a bad breakup. The place was beautiful, rolling hills covered in orange and red leaves, old farmhouses dotting the landscape, and that crisp autumn air that smells like wood smoke and dying leaves. I'd gotten a job as a freelance photographer, and I thought this would be the perfect place to build my portfolio. Scenic shots of New England fall. That stuff sells like crazy. One afternoon, I was driving down this back road I'd never been on before, looking for the perfect shot. That's when I saw it. There was an old cornfield, mostly harvested, with dried stalks scattered everywhere. And right in the middle stood this scarecrow. But this wasn't your typical Halloween decoration. This thing was different. It was at least 7 feet tall, dressed in a tattered brown coat that looked genuinely ancient. Its head was a burlap sack, but the face, someone had painted this twisted, grinning expression on it. The smile was too wide, too knowing. I pulled over and grabbed my camera. The lighting was perfect, that golden hour glow making everything look ethereal. I took maybe 20 shots from different angles. The whole time, I had this weird feeling in my gut, like I was being watched. But I shook it off. It's just a scarecrow, right? That night, I uploaded the photos to my laptop. They turned out incredible, haunting, atmospheric, exactly what I was going for. I posted a few on my photography Instagram and went to bed. I woke up around 3 a.m. to this sound. Scraping, like something rough dragging across the side of my house. I lived in a small rental cottage at the edge of town, surrounded by woods. No neighbors for at least a mile. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, went to the window. Nothing, just darkness and the trees swaying in the wind. But then I heard it again. Scrape, 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 coming from the back of the house now. My heart was pounding. I convinced myself it was just branches or maybe a raccoon. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. In the dirt beneath my bedroom window, there were marks. Not animal tracks. Drag marks. Like something heavy had been pulled across the ground. And mixed in with the dirt were pieces of dried corn stalks. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone was playing a prank? But who? I barely knew anyone in town. That day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At the grocery store. At the coffee shop. Everywhere I went, I kept seeing flashes of brown fabric in my peripheral vision. But when I turned to look, nothing. By the third night, I was barely sleeping. And that's when I saw it. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard my front door creak open. I know I locked it. I always lock it. But I heard it clear as day. The old hinges groaning, footsteps on my wooden floor. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy, deliberate, coming down my hallway. I was frozen, completely paralyzed with fear. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom door. The handle started to turn. I don't know where I found the courage, but I grabbed the baseball bat I kept beside my bed and screamed, "Get out!" The door swung open, and there it was, the scarecrow from the field, standing in my doorway. That burlap face with its painted grin tilted slightly, like it was studying me. But the worst part? The body underneath the clothes wasn't made of straw. I could see something else, something that looked almost human-shaped. The coat moved like there was actual flesh underneath. It took a step toward me, then another. I swung the bat with everything I had. It connected with the thing's chest, and it stumbled back, but it didn't fall, and it didn't make a sound. I ran past it, from my house, out the front door into the night, wearing nothing but my boxers and a t-shirt. I ran down the road until I saw lights, a gas station about 2 miles away. I must have looked insane, screaming for them to call the police. When the cops went to my house, the front door was wide open, but the thing was gone. No trace of it. They found the drag marks in the dirt, the corn stalks, but they chalked it up to an attempted burglary. They had no explanation for what I described. I moved out the next day, packed everything I could carry, and left that town. But here's the thing that still haunts me. Before I left, I decided to drive past that cornfield one more time. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it in the daylight, to prove to myself it was just a scarecrow. The field was empty. No scarecrow. Just dry corn stalks blowing in the wind. I stopped my car and walked to where it had been standing. There was a wooden post in the ground, but nothing attached to it. And at the base of the post, a piece of paper, pinned down with a rusty nail. My hand shook as I picked it up. It was old, yellowed with age, and written in faded ink with 3 words. Juliet Stevens, 2019. My full name, and the current year. But underneath, there were other names. Dozens of them. Different handwriting. Different years going back decades. The most recent one before mine was from 2015. I looked up that name later. Jessica Chun, 28 years old. Photographer. Went missing from this exact town in October 2015. They never found her body. I still have that piece of paper. I've thought about burning it, burying it, but I'm too scared of what might happen if I do. Sometimes late at night, I'll hear scraping outside my window, even though I live in a city apartment now, 4 states away. And last week, I was scrolling through Instagram. Someone had posted a photo of a scarecrow in a Vermont cornfield. I recognized that field immediately. The scarecrow was back, 7 feet tall, brown coat, burlap face with that knowing grin. But here's what made me drop my phone. In the comments, someone asked where the field was. The photographer responded with the address, and they mentioned they were planning to move to Vermont next month. Their name was Sarah Miller. I tried to message them, to warn them, but their account has been deleted. I don't know what that thing is, but it's still out there, still waiting, still choosing.